The CPI inflation report was released this morning. So I want to show you what President Trump said going into the report, and then I want to give you the details of the actual report. So please take a look.
And look, I put out a truth today, and it said that gas is down, gasoline is down, energy is down, groceries are down, eggs are down. I mean, eggs, thank you very much, but eggs are down.
Okay, now let's cover the reports. CPI headline inflation came in at 2.3%. So this is actually the lowest inflation rate since February of 2021. Now, here's the trend of CPI headline inflation as well as core inflation. So headline inflation was at 2.4% the prior month, and it dropped down to 2.3%. Core inflation was at 2.8% the prior month and remained unchanged at 2.8%. Okay, now I put together this summary for you so you can have a quick view of the stats, and these are year-over-year figures. So the analyst expectations, it was actually at 2.4%. That means that the results of this report coming in at 2.3%, it beats expectations. CPI core inflation, again, 2.8%. Energy inflation year-over-year, negative 3.7%. Services inflation, 3.6%. Shelter inflation came in at 4.0%. And food inflation, so food prices went up by 2.8%. So notable mention, of course, eggs. Month over month, they were down 12.7%. Year over year, they're still up 49.3%. Okay, now I want you to keep this in mind. This is very important. So Liberation Day was the big tariff day, and that began on April 2nd. So this CPI inflation report, it covers the month of April. So what happened to the tariff inflation? Analysts are expecting that the brunt of the inflation from tariffs, that's going to appear starting in May to October. So the reason for the lag is because, well, it's two reasons. The first one is inventory stockpiling. So many businesses, they anticipated the tariffs and they increased their inventories ahead of Liberation Day. And that delayed the need to raise consumer prices immediately. We covered this in previous videos. I mean, I showed you, we went to details about how Apple airlifted over 1 million iPhones to get ahead of the tariffs. And also because of the tariff delays. So as you know, pauses were enacted for the higher tariff amounts. Now, I want to show you this. So Trump has been posting that there's virtually no inflation and that the Federal Reserve should cut interest rates. So Jerome Powell, chair of the Federal Reserve, says that he wants to take a wait-and-see approach, that he doesn't want to cut interest rates right now. And President Trump says that Powell is a fool and that he's making a mistake by cutting interest rates too late. So he refers to Powell as too late Powell. Now take a look at this. So this is according to the CME Fed Watch tool. The next Federal Reserve meeting is going to take place on June 18th. And there's a 91.6% chance that the Federal Reserve will not cut interest rates at that June meeting. Okay, so this inflation report, it beat expectations, right? But before the results of this report, so I'm talking about yesterday, the probability of a no rate cut decision in June, it was at 91.8%. So therefore, this report, although it beat expectations, it had a minimal to no effect on market expectations of an interest rate cuts in June. Okay, now I want to be absolutely clear about this. So prices are still going up. I mean, they might not be skyrocketing up like crazy as they were a few years back, but prices are still going up. We still have inflation. And obviously that's not a good thing if wages are not keeping up with inflation, which they aren't. But the Federal Reserve Bank president in New York, he says that, well, given this situation, consumers are doing better than he expected. He says that American consumers are very resilient. So please take a look.
How's the U.S. consumer doing?
Well, it's interesting. The U.S. consumer never lets us down. I mean, really. There's a lot of predictions of weakness back in 2022 when we were raising rates quickly, that the consumer would finally balk and slow down, and they continue to be, consumer spending continue to be good. I mean, clearly, again, this is kind of the line between the hard data and the soft data. The actual consumer spending has held up pretty well, but we are hearing more reports from businesses and others that consumers are starting to pare back some of that discretionary spending. We do think that consumers did load up on some, imported goods early in the year because before tariffs hit. We know businesses did that, that's for sure. So there was a bit of that behavior. So people are definitely, again, I think consumers have been pretty healthy, but has also been kind of preparing for what happens if tariffs come in.
Now, you just saw that video clip, and I would say that that's the sentiment of the Fed Bank president of New York. But here's the actual consumer sentiment. So this is coming from the University of Michigan for April. So consumer sentiment for April is 52.2. So this is down from 57 in March, and that's a drop of 8% from the previous month. So this steep drop in consumer sentiment is being driven by an expectation of a weaker labor markets, a weaker economy, and higher prices. So basically, that's called stagflation. Just look at that. So respondents said that they expect prices to surge 6.5% over the next year, and that's the highest reading since 1981. And there's also the expectation of weaker income growth over the next 12 months. So listen, yes, the inflation report, it beat expectations, but if you're not feeling gung-ho about this economic environment, I'd say that you're not the only one. But I want to show you this is very interesting. So here's the consumer sentiment charts over the past 10 years. As you can see, it's very low, relatively speaking. So that is the overall sentiment. However, so look at this. The sentiment is very different, whether you ask a Republican or a Democrat. So take a good look at this. So if you ask a Republican, over the past 10 years, relatively speaking, it's not great, it's not terrible. It's kind of in the average, again, relatively speaking. If you ask a Democrat, the sentiment is very low. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, that is your update for today. Please subscribe. I'll keep you updated on this whole situation. Thank you for the support, and I wish you a very nice day. Take care.